I'm Ann Alexander. I see one friendly face from one of my classes here. And I teach in the business department, but one of the primary courses I teach is called Business Communication, which is actually both written and oral communication. So I'm doing a repeat of a workshop that I did last year for Who Cares, Why Bother, called Email Like a Pro, This is Not a Text. So talking about some of the ways that we can write more professionally with our email. I think one of the problems we have with email is we often think that it's more casual, like a text, but it's actually a little more formal, like a letter. And emails can actually be used in a court of law as evidence, so don't put anything that you don't want saved. They can be retrieved, so it's like a permanent record. So emails are important, and we send a lot of them. I've heard some people say, oh yeah, email is for old people. But the fact is that we do use a lot of email in business, and I think that's going to continue for quite a while. So even if you're not business majors, whoops, come on. Even if you're not business majors, you're going to have to be, come on. Okay, why is this not working? There we go. Okay, so even if you're not business majors, you are going to be using email in whatever job you have. We're hoping that everybody winds up in some type of business sometime. So it might not be for-profit business, it might be a nonprofit business, it might be a school. Wherever you wind up, you are going to have to be dealing with customers, clients, students, whatever. So we'll be talking a little bit about using email, also picking the right communication channel. So the right channel or method of transmitting a message. There are some things that are better for face-to-face, some things that might be better in email, some things that you might want something that's formal and written down. So talking a little bit about that. Also, 7 ideas for creating effective emails. And then finally, how email can help with your credibility. I think that's important when you're presenting yourself. Okay, email is considered the second most effective channel for getting things done at work. What do you think is the most effective or the first most effective? Pardon me? Face-to-face, yeah, definitely. Why do you think face-to-face is more important? Yeah, it's immediate, much more immediate than email. You're right there, you're talking to the person. What else do you get from face-to-face that you don't get from email? Yeah, expression, so the expression, the voice tone, the body language, all those kinds of things you don't get with an email. All you have from email, or text for that matter, is just the words on the screen. So that's all people have to go on. Has anybody ever sent an email or a text and you were trying to be funny and the person took it the wrong way? Yeah, so sometimes we don't have all the information that we need if it is a written communication. So another survey that I saw said that professional people are spending almost 25% of their day dealing with email. So reading email, writing email, which comes out to over 14 hours a week. That's a lot of email. So I'm thinking myself, I probably get at least 50 emails a day that I have to deal with. Sometimes if it's getting closer to finals time, it's more like 100 emails a day with different questions there. So we get a lot of email. Some professionals get over 100 emails a day to deal with. And I was just reading an article last week, too, that some people are now selectively ignoring emails. So you want to make your email one that people will read, not one that they will just discard. So for example, if I get an email that doesn't have any kind of a subject line, it's not a priority for me. If I have no idea what this is about, or if I get an email from an address that is really odd, I might not reply to it, which is why we ask that all students use their GRCC email. We know exactly who you are if you send it to us because your name is right there in the email. Okay, so let's think about this. Let's just talk about this. What are some appropriate uses of email? Anybody? Good ways to use email. Pardon me? Work orders. Okay, good. So you have something that you need to get done. It's nice because it's faster. Hardly anybody uses snail mail anymore, right? But it also gives you a permanent copy. People can print it out if they want. So it's confirming something. Okay, what else might be a good use of email? Pardon me? Memos, yeah, like maybe an informational memo. It's a good way to get a lot of information out to a lot of people at the same time. So we get a lot of emails here at the college. Anybody get a lot of emails at your work? Yeah. What kinds of things do you have emails about?
Our schedules, our email to us,
Okay.
anything new going on in the building,
Okay.
monthly things going on, stuff like that.
Okay, so lots of informational pieces. Same with you or other things?
When I was in the military, I had an Outlook email.
Okay.
Take with you to each unit with you.
Okay.
And it's gotten to the point where I can get like 1,000 emails a day.
Oh my gosh.
They don't take me on their email list whenever I go to the station, so I've got like 3 days.
Oh my goodness, 1,000 emails a day. Now, does the email program save them forever? Yeah, because we have, after 6 months, our email gets, well, sort of erased, but then they save it for 3 years. But then after 3 years, it's gone. So, but yours, it sounds like it lives forever. Okay.
Currently right now, I've got like 200, 300,000 emails that I
Oh, I think you win the prize. 300,000 emails. That's scary. What happens if you delete them? Are you allowed to delete them? Oh, okay.
It's such a hassle.
It is. Yeah, I've got about 3,000 right now, and I'm thinking that looks overwhelming, but 300,000 would be very tough. Yeah. That's a lot of email, though. Okay, how about inappropriate uses of email? What would be a bad reason to use email? Pardon me? Cat memes, yes. Just kind of worthless, well, I don't want to say worthless, humorous things. I mean, particularly if you're talking in the workplace. You probably don't want to be sending funny links and cat video. I was just watching a cat video last night, and I thought, yeah, you can't send that out to people unless it's something like Facebook or your friend or whatever. What else would be a inappropriate use of email? Spreading rumors, right. If it's something that you're just trying to get people revved up and it's not really true. I'm even thinking, does anybody remember hearing about chain letters? Do they still have those in email? So it would be, send this to 12 people and all your dreams will come true, or, you will meet the love of your life. And so just kind of bogus, false stuff is not a good thing to send. What else might be a bad use of email? Solicitation, yeah. I never give to anybody who sends me something by email unless it's something that I'm already a contributor for. Like I do the Komen walks, so I do read the things that say the next Komen walk is coming up, blah, 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 and I'll do that. But yeah, just random things I don't respond to. Another thing I thought of that would be really bad to do over email is to fire somebody. Can you imagine that? Don't bother coming into work tomorrow, and your email will be inactive at the end of today. So, bad use. So, a few things when we think about how we're going to communicate, whether we're going to do it face-to-face or whether we're going to write a letter, email, text, whatever, the richness. And the face-to-face gives us the most richness. It's immediate, as you said, so it's right here. We can do feedback rather immediately for face-to-face. And then we also have more cues. We have more information that we're getting. So email is less rich. We have tried to compensate for that with emojis, but even emojis can be confusing. If you send a smile face or if you send a wink, people could interpret that differently. Another thing that we need to think about is control. So how much control do we have over the message? We have considerably less control face-to-face. Right? We're talking on the fly. We're right there. We have to say what we're thinking, and we can't just leave the room if we're not sure that we know what to say. But there is more planning and permanence in anything that is a written message. So we don't plan as much for an email as you might for writing a term paper, But you should plan something rather than just start writing, and realize that it can be a permanent record. People can print it out. Even if you put the little disclaimers at the bottom of the email, this is only for the person to whom it's addressed, blah, 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 they may still forward it or show it to somebody else. So anything that you send in an email can be permanent, whether you want it to be or not. And then we also have to think about constraints. So how difficult is it to do this? Something like an email or a text doesn't have a lot of constraints. We can just quickly send it off, it goes off, and we're done. On the other hand, if we wanted to get together and have a meeting with 10 people, that requires a lot more coordination and might require a lot more resources too. So thinking about even video conferencing. Has anybody here ever done video conferencing? How about Skype or Zoom or FaceTime or any of those? Yeah, so those are all video conferencing. That's a really nice way to get people together with fewer resources. I'm in a group right now of people that meets once a month, and we have 3 of us from Michigan, 3 of them from California, and 1 guy is from Kentucky. So the biggest thing for us is just making sure we have a time that is correct for everyone, that it's during the daytime hours for everyone. But other than that, it's really pretty easy. We do it on a platform called Zoom, and we can share documents, and it's really nice. So that adds to this immediacy and cues because we can see each other, but it does require some resources and planning to get it done. So if we were to look at this in terms of email or face-to-face, email is pretty low in richness, high in control, but also pretty low in constraints. So you can control the message, which is why it's really important to do that. Think about your message. You have the opportunity to think before you write something down. Has anybody ever written something and then you wish you hadn't sent it? Anybody? Yeah, it happens sometimes. Hopefully we don't do it at work. Hopefully we don't do it at home either. But, or has anybody ever accidentally sent an email to somebody that you didn't want to send it to? Yeah, that can be really scary if it's something, but you should probably be thinking about what you're saying in the email if you don't want a particular person to see it. Okay, face-to-face, on the other hand, very high in richness, low in control. So we will see on the video me trying to make the computer work. And constraints, depending on what it is, low or high. If you're trying to do a whole conference, so I think about Jim Hayes trying to organize this entire conference, that is a lot of planning to get the whole thing done. On the other hand, if you're just going to walk next door and talk to the person in the next office, that has very few constraints. Just knock on the door and talk to them. So let's get into what we need to do for effective emails. I've got 7 ideas here. And then also I wanted to let you know if any of you are interested in having my slides, I'll have my email address at the end. If you just send me an email, I would be glad to send you a copy of the slides too if you would enjoy having those later on. So using email for the right purposes, which we've already talked about some. Ensuring ease of reading, so something that is easy for people to find their way through. I don't know about you, I hate to get an email that's just one big block of text that goes on and on and on and on, and you're waiting, when are they going to get to the point? Showing respect for other people's time. Okay, so that also means don't send them cat memes when they're trying to do their job. A bugaboo of mine is if you send a meeting notice to a bunch of people, and everybody replies to everybody, yes, I'll be there. You know, so it's an extra 15 emails I don't need to see. Protect privacy and confidentiality. So even if there is not that little disclaimer at the bottom, don't send this to anybody else. Just don't do that. Don't send it to other people. And don't send confidential information by email because there's a chance that anybody can see that. Respond promptly. What do you think is a good time frame in the workplace for responding to an email? An hour? Okay. That might be difficult. Other thoughts? Yeah. Okay. Right, if you see it, yeah, if you see it right away. So I think we're starting to look at emails like we look at texts, because think about that. How soon do you expect somebody to respond to a text? Right away, right away. And emails, sometimes we can't get to them immediately. I've had that conversation sometimes with people at the college. I sent you an email 2 hours ago. And I might say, well, I was in class for those 2 hours. And honestly, I'm not answering email while I'm in class. So we do have to allow that people may have other things to do in addition to email. So even if people are spending 2 hours a day on email, they're spending 6 hours a day or 7 hours a day doing other things that are not email. Generally, the standard in the workplace is 24 hours or 1 business day to get back. But if it is something that's more urgent, let people know. If it's something that is urgent and you need a response by noon, let them know that. And then you might want to put it in the urgent category of the red envelope. But be very careful of those red envelopes. I used to have a colleague at a different job that put everything in a red envelope. And it was like the boy who cried wolf, right? If everything is always urgent, then nothing is urgent. But if you almost never use that urgent sign and you do it, you'll pay attention. Okay, also maintain professionalism and appropriate formality. I'm going to be reading an email to you later on that was from an article called "My Name is Not Hey." I can't tell you how many emails I get from students that start out with "Hey," or "Hey, Ann, what do you want?" And that's pretty informal, and we think of email as really informal. But I would say definitely in the workplace and also at school when you're preparing for whatever kind of work you want to do later on, we do want it to be relatively formal. Okay, and then maintain emotion, meaning don't send an email if you're angry, you will regret it, and also appropriate civility. And I don't know if any of you were here a few years back, probably those folks are all graduated by now, but we had a one book, one college thing several years ago where we were reading a book about 25 rules of civility. So all ways that we can treat one another better and be more polite and just more civilized with each other. So be sure that you're doing that. Again, remember, email could be a permanent record. So just a little bit more about each of these. The best kind of emails are these kinds of things. If something is routine, if it's fact-based, so things like reminders, schedule changes, those kinds of things. Task-oriented, so getting things done. This doesn't mean that you can never ask a question in an email. That can be a very useful thing to do. But also non-sensitive. Sometimes we'll have not so much at work, but I've seen this more outside of work. You'll have email trains going back and forth, and they're angry, and everybody gets in on it, and it just is not productive at all to do that. So try to avoid using email for very sensitive information. That's the kind of time when you want to sit down and have a conversation. So in that kind of a situation, I would probably send an email and say, I'd like to talk to you about something. These times are good for me. Are any of those good for you? And then sit down and have that serious conversation. I would do that even if I'm responding to a student who has questions about their grade or I'm really behind. How do I get caught up? I don't want to have that conversation over email. I want to have that face-to-face so we can actually talk about what's going on and then make a serious plan rather than just doing the email chain back and forth. If it were somebody that were online, I would probably want to have a phone conversation if they can't get into campus. Okay, other things to do. Give a short, descriptive subject line. If you don't have any subject line, I have no idea what you want. If you say question, I still don't have very much of an idea what you want. But if you say something like, question about week 4 work, BA 201, I have a clue of what you're going to be asking about. Or if you just say, I'm in your class. Well, I have several classes, and I do my best to try and figure out what name is in what class, but particularly at the very beginning of the semester, we don't know that. Keep the message brief but complete. So give whatever you need to put in it, but don't go on at great length. So rather than having a big chain that starts out, let's get together, what time is good for you? It might be better on in the first email to say, let's get together to talk about XYZ. I'm free Monday after 3 and Tuesday before noon. Do either of those times work for you? And that gives them something to respond to. Otherwise, you're just going back and forth. Well, Wednesday's good for me. No, Wednesday's bad for me. How about Friday? That kind of thing. Clearly identify what you expect people to do. So if it is something that is really urgent and you need a response 1 hour from now, let them know that. Or if there is a deadline, if you say, as soon as you can, when will it get done? Yeah, as soon as they can, sometimes never. Sometimes long after you needed it. But to give people some kind of expectations. What is it that you want from them? So it might not just be responding, but what do you want in the nature of the response? So we need to schedule a training. Please respond by Friday at noon with 3 topics that you might find interesting. So that way you can get what you're wanting. Provide a descriptive signature block. So do put your name, not necessarily address all the time. These days people are more reluctant to give out their street address, but certainly ways of contacting you. So email and phone number. I would say too for your email, if you're using it for business, if you're using it to look for a job, have your email be something that is professional and neutral. Probably the best thing to have would be some combination of your name and maybe some numbers if there are other people who have that email. I don't see it as much now, but I used to get emails from people like Beerman89. Okay, that kind of gives an image. Or sexy girl with a bunch of R's. Just, you don't want that out there if you're looking for a job or if you're in the workplace. And then use attachments wisely. Sometimes it's better to have something as an attachment rather than have a really long email. That also allows the person to save that document and refer back to it later on. Hey, a few other things. Pick your recipients carefully. Don't send it to people who don't need it. So I got a great thing. I don't know if anybody knows Mr. Brand. He works a lot in distance learning and teaches business law with us. But he had sent us a great resource from NBC Learn, the video things that they can do, and sent it to 50 people. So when I sent him a thank you, I didn't send it to all 50 people. I just sent it to Mr. Brand because everybody else doesn't need to know that I'm saying thank you to Gary. Otherwise, it just clutters up the email. Provide timelines, provide options. I mentioned that before. Be careful about the priority flag or the red envelope. Don't use it all the time. But if it is something that is clearly urgent, go ahead and put it on there. Also, let other people know if you're going to take longer than expected. So I try to get back to emails within 1 business day. But if I know that I'm not going to be available, I need to let people know that. So if I'm going to be traveling, of course, these days you can even get internet on the plane and train and cruise and everywhere else. But if you know that you're going to be taking longer than you usually would to respond to something, make sure you let people know. And then avoid contributing to these repetitive email chains. I'll be there, so will I. Me too. Oh boy, looking forward to seeing everyone. That gets really irritating. If that adds 5 emails to your 100 emails a day, it's just a waste of your time. Protecting people's privacy. So don't spread sensitive information. Don't put something in writing that you don't want out there because you really lose control of it. Also, most employers have access to your email. So depending on how you use it, there could be consequences. Now again, I think people are wiser now. We actually had somebody many years ago at the college that was using a college computer to try to set up a meeting with an underage person. They got fired for that. Other times, people may have been using it. Well, I know we've got if you've ever looked at your acceptable use agreement, it says what you can and cannot use the college computers for. So you're not supposed to be using the college computers to run your own business outside of the college, along with other kinds of inappropriate things. But definitely don't spread any information that you don't want out there. I sometimes think, don't put anything on email that you don't want on a billboard on 131, because it can get out there. Also, double check the address line before you send. I have gotten so many emails from somebody who is now retired. Ann Sandberg used to work at the college, and people would be typing in Ann, and then if her name popped up, they'd send it to her. Or she would get my stuff. And so we had to keep sending our emails to each other. Our department head in business is named Felix Pereiro, and there's another Felix at the college. It's kind of an unusual name, but there are two of them. And so sometimes he doesn't get emails that people are trying to send him. So do double check the address line. If you're sending to people within the college, depending on how long we've been here, we may have a really long email or a really short email. Mine is fairly short because when I started at the college, we were only allowed to have 8 characters in our name. So I'm A. Alexand. If you tried to send me something at A. Alexander, it would go nowhere. I would never see it. And one time I had a student who said, I've sent you 20 emails this semester, you never responded to any of them. And he had them all printed out, and they were all going to the wrong address because I never saw any of them. So make sure that you double check it. Also make sure that if you're writing an email about somebody, now hopefully you're not sending gossip and that kind of thing, but even if you're writing an email about, I think we should hire so-and-so, make sure that you don't send it to the candidate there until they've been made an offer. Okay, other things, responding promptly. Most business professionals will expect a reply within 1 day, but again, if it's urgent. How many of you are sticking around to hear Penny Wenninger next session? Okay, so she will also talk about how in HR, human resources, often those deadlines are tighter than 1 day, so it might only be a couple of hours or an hour that you've got. But again, if that's the case, the person should be letting you know if they've got a deadline. And then let other people know how soon they can expect a reply. A lot of people, when they go on vacation or they're traveling, might be able to set a rule in their email that responds. I am out of the office until February 14. I will respond on that day. So just to let people know so they're not wondering why you're not following up. Okay, maintaining professionalism. This is probably the biggest thing that I see in the emails that I receive, whether it's a lot of errors, so standards of spelling, punctuating, and formatting. An email is not a text. That means that you actually have to capitalize and use sentences, and it's more like a letter. Avoid any indications that you see something as really informal. So the salutation of hey is probably a little too informal in email. It's also a nice idea, but not required, to use greetings and names. So, good morning, Mr. Smith. Thank you for your reply. Whatever. So, do use those niceties in terms of greetings and also closings. And then maintaining your emotion. So, the neutrality and negative effects, how that works is this. Because written communication, including an email, has less richness than if we're face-to-face and actually talking with each other and listening to each other, we may tend to interpret a neutral message as negative. So you want to be sure that you are as positive as possible. And a negative message by email is interpreted as even more negative. So just make sure that you are being positive and polite and constructive in your emails. Okay, avoiding flames or writing things that are angry or attacking. Also avoid cyber silence. If you just don't respond to somebody for a while, that's not a good thing. Maybe you need time to find the information they need, or you don't have an answer yet, but at least let them know that you're working on it. And then some of the cyber incivility, the active, of course, would be sending negative messages or spreading rumors, spreading confidential information. But passive would be just ignoring someone. Now, eventually, that may get rid of them, and sometimes people have done that. Has anybody ever heard of someone ending a relationship by just refusing to respond to texts or emails or anything, and eventually they just go away? Okay, well, that may work, and our psychology friends would call that extinction, right? So they don't get any reinforcement, so they go away. We don't want that to happen in business or in our workplace. We don't want our coworkers to just go away from us, or our customers to just go away from us. Okay, so we want to get active in that. Oops. Also, things that you can do. Has anybody ever gotten a really angry or inappropriate email? Somebody just kind of went off and was crazy about it. Okay, so if you ever get that, respond appropriately. The main thing is that you don't want to respond in kind, right? So you may reinterpret. I'm thinking about one person who used to send me emails last year, and they would just kind of go off on all these different crazy things, and then at the end of it would finally get to the point, and then I just realized that's what this person's personality is like. That's how they are. It may not be my favorite way of dealing with things, but this was somebody that I had to communicate with, so I just thought, okay, he must be having a bad day. And then try and relax yourself as you respond, and then to diffuse it. So if somebody is going on and on and on, try and figure out what the real problem is, and then address that, rather than telling somebody to calm down. What do you do if somebody tells you to calm down? Do you calm down? No, you probably get more irritated with them. Who the heck are you telling me to calm down? So try and figure out what the issue is and deal with that, or why are they writing you this, and respond to that. Okay, I don't have enough handouts for everybody, so I'm going to ask for a few people who would like to volunteer to take a look at this. Okay, back on the mic. So it's called Can't Come to Your Class. It was inspired by an article that I read, but I added a few things that were more like things that I might receive. So it's to Professor X from unrecognizable name at hotmail.com. So I have no idea who this is. Subject, can't come to your class. C-A-N-T without an apostrophe, and then your is spelled Y-R. Hey, exclamation point. I won't be in class today. Won't without an apostrophe. Comma, I feel very sick and need to sleep all day. I know we were supposed to be watching a video today, so you can send it to me electronically. So supposed and electronically are both misspelled. So I can watch it at home. Small l, let me know if there's anything I will miss, exclamation point. I know that there are no excused absences, but can you, the letter U, make an exception just this one time? Please, PLS, contact me at your earliest convenience, spelled wrong. Thanks, THX, a lot. And you have a great weekend, 4 exclamation points, or is it 5? Okay. I am going back to sleep now. So, which areas, for folks who can actually look at this, which areas did they violate? Pretty much everything, okay. Did they use email for the right purposes? Kind of, yeah. I mean, they were letting me know they weren't going to be there, and I appreciate that people let me know if they can't be there. Okay, did they ensure ease of reading? No, what was bad about it? Okay, everything, not very readable. Did they show respect for my time? No. It said, respond at your earliest convenience. Whoa, That's something I might get from my boss or my boss's boss. Okay. Protecting privacy and confidentiality. I don't know if there's an issue. I don't really see an issue with that. They're just talking about themselves. Okay. Responding promptly. Well, perhaps. I mean, sometimes people get sick at the last minute. Maintaining professionalism and appropriate formality. Definitely they fail. It's a big fail in that area. Okay, how about maintaining emotion and managing civility? I mean, it's not unpleasant, but it does sound kind of whiny. I'm sick. I need to sleep all day. Have a wonderful weekend. Also, watch out for excessive exclamation points. Sometimes a well-placed punctuation mark is a good thing, but if every sentence has an exclamation point, or even if a lot of sentences have exclamation points, those are not very useful. Okay, so thank you for our participants in this. So, last thing to think about. Why do we want to bother about this? It's because we want to be credible. So whether we're responding to somebody from school who might have influence in giving you a letter of recommendation or helping you apply for scholarships or might be helpful finding jobs for you, or whether you're looking for a job or whether you're already in the workplace and want to keep that job or get a better job, you want to be credible. You want to be trustworthy. And particularly in a written form of communication, you don't have all these other cues. So all people have to go on is what you put on the screen or what you put on the page if it's a written document. So you want to let people know that you are competent. And one of the ways that you do that is by proofreading. So even if it's an email that you're sending off really quickly, double check, make sure you haven't misspelled things, make sure that you're using full words rather than abbreviations, make sure that you're capitalizing. And if you're not sure how to do that, I want to give a shout out to the English lab, right? How many folks have worked in the English lab or have gone to the English lab and worked there? Yeah, they can be extremely helpful. If you're not clear about your mechanics, you're not sure how best to word something, ask them. Now, you can't do that every time you do an email, but just to get general help as you're working on documents that you write, ask them. Also, caring. How can writing show caring? I think it's easy to show lack of care. How did that last example show lack of caring? Spelling, okay. Because we're not going to probably say, oh, this person was so sick that they couldn't even figure out how to spell a word. I feel so sorry for them. What else do you think you're going to think? Not that. You're probably going to think either they don't know any better or they're just lazy. And those are probably not things that you want people to think about you. Okay, so you don't care about much if you're not proofreading yet. I think also the idea about let me know if I'm going to miss anything. Does that bug you too? Yeah. I'm always tempted, and I've never done it, but I'm always tempted when somebody comes back to class and they say, did we do anything last week? And I always feel like saying, you know, we were so depressed that you didn't show up that we just looked at the wall for an hour and a half. We were just so upset. So no, you didn't miss, we didn't do anything at all last week. So make sure that you were, and that goes along with respecting people's time and not sending them worthless things they don't need. And then character. How could you use email to indicate that you have a good character? Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah, so it's really the way that you phrase it, because people do get sick or people do have things happen. I just got a really good email from somebody yesterday, kind of like what you're saying. This was a situation where they had been called into work at the last minute. And this is somebody who never misses class, but asked me in the email, could you please let me know what I need to have prepared for next class, and I'll see you on Wednesday. So that was a good email. Yeah, other things for character. What do you? Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I try and have something. I started doing something several semesters ago now, that I'll have a 1-week free pass on some of my assignments. You can use it for whatever reason you want, and I have weekly assignments, so you can get a 1-week delay on one assignment anytime through the semester, just through the semester. And then I do in-class things that are graded, but I drop the lowest one. So I still keep on going with the class, but there are some options. And certainly if somebody's in the hospital or, you know, something, I had one student who actually had to go overseas, that their parent was gravely ill, and they had to travel outside of the country. Well, of course I'm going to work with them, you know, but that's interesting, though. That's kind of off what we're doing here, but you're just curious what people do? Yeah. I think everybody does it differently. It really depends on what you're doing in your class and how flexible it is, and also, is there anything you can do online instead? Are there some things that you absolutely have to be there that you can't miss? And then just working through it that way. Exactly. Oh, yeah, we're more understanding of that. If somebody disappears for 3 weeks, that's a whole different story. But if you keep us in the loop, I think that's what we really want, is to know what's going on. I think this is the end of mine, which is good, because I'm at the end. So these are the 7 principles. And then this is how to get a hold of me. It's aalexand@grcc.edu. If you would like a copy of the slides, I would be glad to send those to you. And then I have my own tagline now, business communication. It's not just for business majors. So I'm trying to decide if I want to put that in my signature block or something. But I think we all need to think about how we communicate in the workplace. I am jealous sometimes of the folks who get to teach creative writing and poetry and all these fun things, because the writing that I do is not necessarily really exciting, but it's to get things done. And that's what you need to think about. Yeah. No, it's just at grcc.edu. Yeah, the staff are just at GRCC, and then student emails are the email. So I'll leave that up until Penny gets ready. Okay, thank you for coming.